let's talk about expressions. Copy the title. This is also going to be short. Okay, what are expressions? Well, unlike an expression is just a combination of numbers and variables. And unlike an equation, there's no equal sign, which means there is no this is equal to 3 or equal to 8. It's just the expression itself. And what the SAT will usually ask you to do is to change this expression or to operate around this expression to get basically the same value, which means we're not going to add subtract values. What we're going to do is we're going to reduce, factorize, expand, or reorganize it in a way in which we don't really change the value of the expression. The value remains the same. From here, we're going to use the rules of exponents and radicals, and we're going to check the differences in alternatives to make our lives easier. Okay, pause the video, copy this, moving on. So these are some useful formulas. If you know them, you already know them. If you don't know them, well, then you have to learn them. My advice is that you have to memorize these formulas. Just memorize them. So I want you to pause the video right now, copy them, and you will eventually memorize them. Now, for homework, when you do practice, just use your formulas right next to you. Just read them. You don't really have to memorize them on the first day, but you will eventually have to memorize them so you know how to apply them. Okay, moving on, we are going to do this example over here. I want you to pause the video right now and solve this example. Pause the video, solve the example, write down the answer. We are going to solve it. Okay, so we have an expression, and the question is, which of the following is equivalent to the expression above? Again, we want the equivalent value. We're not really finding x, finding a, finding b. We're not doing any of that. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to solve it again in two ways. And in the first way, I'm going to solve it in the fast way. The fast way goes like this. It uses a little bit of a trick, a little bit of a strategy. If you read the alternatives, right? The alternatives are different, which means we don't necessarily have to finish solving everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to see what alternatives could possibly be and what alternatives could not possibly be. Again, taking into account that we're not really changing the value remains the same. So for example, when we look at alternative A is reduced to just one single term, while the expression that we have originally has one, two, three, at least three terms. Well, it has more, 4, 5, 6 terms, but I know I can combine some of the terms, right? So what do I do? Well, I can just do it by focusing on some of the terms. So I'm just going to focus on the first term. Let's say, instead of solving the whole thing, I'm going to focus on the a square. So here I have 3a squared, 3a squared, 5a squared. So I'm just going to focus on a squared, not a squared, b squared, not on b squared. So I have 2 times 2a squared, so I have 4a squared. Minus a squared, that's going to give me 3a squared. So whatever the answer is going to contain a 3a squared, so it's not letter D. So we are between B and C. Now, I could do the second term, which is 11a b squared, a squared b squared, but if you notice, they have the same term, which means I don't really care about the second term because after I find the second term, it's going to be the same for b and c, so I'm not going to focus on the second term. I'm going to focus on the third term, on the b squared, because now I get a different term. Here I have negative 18b squared, and here I have positive 2b squared. So now I'm going to just focus on b squared, not on a squared b squared, just b squared alone. So in my question, in my original expression, I have negative 4b squared. Okay, 2 times negative 4b squared, that gives me negative 8b squared. Okay, and then I have this is a negative, and then I have negative, so minus, so negative, and then I have a positive, negative times negative becomes positive, so I have minus 10b squared, that gives me plus 10b squared. So I end up having negative ab squared plus 10b squared, so negative ab squared plus 10b squared, that gives me positive 2b squared. So it's going to be 3a squared plus something something plus 2b squared, and then I see the difference between b and c, so c is the one that has the 2b squared, so I choose letter c. That's how I do it. I want you to pause it, rewind if you have to, and copy. And I'm going to also do it in the longer, easier way. Okay, I'm going to erase. So let's say I don't really want to mess with the alternatives, or I forgot I could mess with the alternatives. What do I do? Well, I just solve the expression. I read the expression and I go ahead and operate on it. So I'm going to look at the first part. I'm just going to expand. So I'm going to distribute the two on the other terms, the terms inside the parentheses. So I have 2 times 2a squared, so I have 4a squared minus 2 times 3a squared b squared, so I have minus 6a squared b squared, 2 times negative 4b squared, so minus 8b squared. Perfect. And then I'm going to operate on the second one. I mean, you're going to tell me, yes, but the second one doesn't have something that multiplies. Well, no, but it has this negative sign. So this negative sign is going to affect every term inside. So I have minus a squared minus 5 squared b squared, and then minus that minus plus 10b squared. What am I going to do now? I'm going to group similar terms together. So a squared with a squared b squared with a squared b squared, and finally b squared with b squared. So how do I group them together? I have 4a squared minus a squared, 3a squared minus 6a squared b squared minus 5a squared b squared minus 11a squared b squared. And finally, minus 8b squared plus 10b squared plus 2b squared, which gives me letter C. This is how we're going to solve it. Pause the video, copy the solution, and we're going to move on to the next example. I want you to pause the video right now, solve this question, write down your answer, and we're going to check. Okay, same thing as before. There's a faster way and then a longer way. We're going to do the faster way first, see if you get what's going on. Again, we look at the alternatives and we look at all of the alternatives, and this time I can see that, well, most of my alternatives have a 4x squared and then I have an ax squared. Just with this, you kind of can tell that the answer is 4x squared, because if the answer were 8 squared, it would be too easy. But since this is the SAT, we're not going to take it for granted. And this is really important. I mean, if you had no idea of how to do a question, when at the end I'm going to teach you a lot of strategies. And yes, one of the strategies is just find what's different in all the alternatives. And if you have zero idea, just go with that. But since here we are in the class of expressions, that we're not going to take it for granted, which means we're still going to focus on the x squared. So how do we find the x squared? We're just going to focus on the x, just combining x with x, right? So I have 2x, and then I have 2x here, so that gets you the 4x squared, so I know it's not going to be D. Okay, I know that. Now I'm going to look at A, B, and C, and I'm going to see what is different in all of them. So all of them have 10 and 24 as values. The difference is that sometimes they're negative, sometimes they're positive. So I have negative, positive, positive, and then negative, negative, positive. Basically, the question is just to find whether they're positive or negative. Now, here's the thing. If I find that 10 is positive, I get to eliminate A, but I will still deal with B and C. So I will still have to find the 24. And if I find that the 10 is negative, I get to eliminate B and C, and I get A. Now, if I find that 24 is positive, I get to eliminate A and B, but I'm still left with C. If I find that 24 is negative, I get to eliminate C, and still are A and B, which means here, whether we find the 10 or we find the 24 is like a 50-50 chance. There is no one that is better than the other one. I'm telling you this because in the previous question, for example, we decided to skip the a squared b squared because it was the same in B and C, so we didn't care about this. In this case, it's pretty much the same whether we skip the 10 or 24, because at the end of the day, we're going to still have to choose, we're probably going to still have to find the other one. Okay, so the way to do this is just operate them. Then we're going to expand on this, right? So we're going to first expand on the parentheses. So I have 2 times, and then I'm going to expand on the parentheses. I'm going to distribute, right? So I have x. I'm going to do it one by one. So I have x times 2x. It will be 2x squared. Sorry about this, 2x squared. And they have x times 3 plus 3x. Okay, and they have negative 4 times 2x minus 8x, and finally negative 4 times 3 minus 12. Okay, before I multiply times 2, I'm going to reduce the expression I have inside the parentheses. I'm going to put the x and x together, so I have 2x squared plus 3x minus 8x will be minus 5x minus 12. Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to distribute these 2 times every item inside the parentheses, and I'm going to get 2 times 2x squared, 4x squared, 2 times 5x minus 10x, and 2 times 12 minus 24, which will be the answer, letter A. Okay, copy this if you have to copy, and we're going to move on. Okay, these are the answers. Inside or in terms of the expressions, I remember we're going to use all the expressions. Sorry, we're going to use the formulas. We're going to use basically putting them together, expanding on the parentheses, etc. Okay, I want you to pause the video right now and solve this question. This is a question from Digital Practice Test. Pause the video, solve the question, find your answer. Now we're going to solve it. Okay, so if you look at the alternatives, again, we're going to solve it in 2 different ways, right? First, if we look at the alternatives, we can see that we have x cubed, or negative 13x cubed. So in order to eliminate, we're going to just focus on the x cubed. So I have 7x cubed here, minus 6x cubed here, 7x cubed minus 6x cubed, this is equal to x cubed. So I know it's not going to be B or C because I got the cube, I mean the expression with the cube, and it was just x cubed. That's it, right? So it doesn't give me the answer, which means I'm still gonna have to operate on the next term. So the next term is dx alone. So this is 7x and then minus 3x. So the blue part will be 7x minus 3x. So it will be 7x plus 3x, which is 10x, which is letter A. Now, pause the video, copy if you have to copy. The other way of solving this will be pretty much the same, but without having to eliminate B and C. Remember, I want you to start practicing eliminating expressions because in the real SAT, it's a useful skill, but you don't really have to do it like that. You can just open up everything. Just write down your expression, you copy the expression on your piece of paper, and you open up the parentheses. So it will be 7x cubed plus 7x minus 6x cubed plus 3x. Then I'm going to group similar terms together. So this with this. So it will be 7x cubed minus 6x cubed. And then this is a plus 7x minus, plus 3x. And this will be x cubed plus 10x will give me the same answer. Okay, pause the video, copy if you had to copy. We are going to move on to the next example. I want you to pause the video right now, solve this question, write down your answer. Okay, we are going to solve it. Which expression is equivalent to all of these, where m, q, and z are positive? Well, again, the short way will be look at all the alternatives. In this case, it's a bit easier because if you notice, the m's, every single m in your alternative has a different exponent, which means if we can just figure the exponent for the m, we're going to get the answer. So we're going to forget about the q and the z, and we're going to focus on the m. So m to the 4 times m. So I have n to the 4 times m, which applying my law of exponents, I know that is m to the 5. Therefore, all I have to do is go to the alternatives, see which one has m to the 5. That's my answer. Letter B is my answer. Pause the video right now. Copy if you have to copy. I'm still going to solve it the other way. What is the other way of solving it? The other way of solving it is like distributing everything. I am going to distribute. Again, similar terms together. Remember the associative property that we learned on number properties means these parentheses, I can take off these parentheses because these are all multiplying, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group similar terms together, right? So m with m, so m to the 4 times m, right, times q to the 4 times q to the 5 times z to the negative 1 times z to the cube. So I have this will be n to the fifth, and this will be q to the ninth. 4 plus 5 is 9, times z to the power of 2, because 3 minus 1 is 2, which leads the same answer, letter B. So I can either use my properties or I can eliminate, but I will still get the same answer. Okay, pause the video, copy if you have to copy. These are the answers, and this is the homework from the Panda book if you want to do more practice on expressions. Remember, you can also just go ahead and do your practice test or use Khan Academy, and we're going to continue with the theory.